I really like conversation more than I like, the ever developing presentation. But I do have a few things that I can kind of show. I mean, the object here was to improve things on the neurologic side, but it was also just because I was seeing unquestionable, undeniable results that docs are not necessarily used to seeing. And this kind of feeds into, I think, what I believe is the right ethical, um, moral approach, if you will, of not keeping people on some kind of a wheel and turning this sort of sick care model against people, which is, I mean, I've never been a doctor, but I've been a patient many times in my life, is
Sure.
kind of tell people. And, the idea that there's a corporate interest in keeping people at a sort of utilitarian level of health is pretty disgusting to me. And then I had the experience of succeeding in this offer. And I'll give you a quick example of what I mean, but I tell everybody that comes in, I said, look, I want to be able to offer a good value, cash pay, even negotiated at times, and I'm open if there are people who have certain, if they want to pay for it in a couple payment, whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And what I have landed on with my medical director, sort of just by happenstance, is that the most common thing that he's recommending with these treatments is a 90-day program. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but the 90 days is a place where an individual can come in twice a week. They can get their treatments and experience sort of a trajectory of progress. And since it's impossible to see into the future, everybody always wants to know when will this start working and how long will it last? And I just say exactly what I'm saying now. I can't see into the future, but I am looking at a recent past and a present moment with patients who are similar to you, Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith, and we are getting results that are measurable. So that's about the best that I can offer. And in addition to that, um, saying, that 90-day program that Dr. Anderson recommended, why don't we just focus on the first 6 weeks of that rather than put the whole kit and caboodle down? Why don't you pay for the first 6 weeks and then we'll call that our midway point. We'll sit down, we'll reassess, we'll look at everything that you've achieved and decide where does that trajectory go. And that's a risky place to be with a patient sometimes from the standpoint of the business, right? And in this particular case, and most patients say, "Hey, that's great. That's a great deal. I'll do that." And then they continue on with the second half.
Yeah.
And some have even stayed longer than that.
That's great.
In one circumstance, this gentleman, 65 years old, and really kind of just a number of things going on from the waist down, the legs, the circulation, the lymphatic, the knees are swollen and not going where they needed to go, varicose veins, just everything was just kind of, you know, and it was a genetic issue. It ran in his family. He said everybody gets
Yeah.
past a certain age. My family, we have problems with our legs. So, we did our initial screenings and then we put him into the suit. We started doing the light. We found a couple of other issues just by observation that he probably would have benefited from a decent pair of orthotics. He was slamming his feet into the ground, hanging his head way over his shoulders when he walked around. And we did that. We worked with the light on the lymph system and we used the suit to enhance the circulation. The varicose veins, 80% went away. I couldn't see him anymore. His
Wow.
legs looked pretty darn normal. But he got to that 6 week point and he said, man, you guys have really turned me around. I mean, I'm basically better. I don't even feel like I need the other 6 weeks right now. Now, okay, well, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he would benefit from another 6 weeks. I wouldn't say that he wouldn't. But there was the moment where he was like, as a patient, making his own decision. Um, and we delivered a result that he was happy enough with that he went right out and left us a great Google review.
Wow.
And we're still at the 5 stars with the reviews that we're getting. We don't have hundreds yet, but we've got a good healthy handful of people who have come here and experienced something that they just don't experience in most places, not just in the results side of the house, but just in the amount of time that we're spending and the respect that we show them and the
Yeah.
answer we try to provide, whether it's in an off the cuff phone call that they have later in the day. Hey, I forgot to ask, such and such. But as a quick um, share here, I'm not the best at this. Give me one second here as I look for want to share. Here's kind of to me, everything is always a work in progress. Um, and this would be it. Are you seeing that now?
I think you
You
got to
see?
double click it. There you go. Now I can. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is kind of the interaction between what I originally created with Neurologic from the standpoint of working with clinics directly, more B2B, and then taking my imagination to this place called Brand New Day. We originally started as Pain Lab because of the focus on pain, but we quickly saw that we were going beyond that and we were really kind of getting into a place where the neurological and the brain health scores and with WAVI and TM Flow or and just the patients anecdotally saying, man, I could not do this for the last 5 years. I couldn't move my feet.
That's awesome.
Um, and so this is just kind of where we are. And I have multiple reasons, right? I mean, you're a doctor. I'm trying to remember Greg Chung. I think he might be a doc, or he certainly works with him a lot. Like, what's the point here? Well, I mean, ultimately, the point is, I think, two or threefold is to say, A, we're here. We're here as Neurologic. We're here as Brand New Day Clinic. We have seen an interesting development with certain practitioners out there who themselves are patients who have some kind of neurological issue or some kind of a physical limitation, whatever it is, and they've tried so many things and those things have not worked or they plateaued or whatever the case may be. And they've come here and they have this great experience. They get into the suit, they see how it interacts with the light. We show them the measurements and we make them better. And so there's this sort of dual purpose almost, which honestly, unintended. The whole retreat package was unintended. I did not open this place thinking people would fly here from Idaho.
Yeah.
I have people flying from driving in from California in January,
Wow.
another couple from North Dakota in January. And I just mentioned those because they came up just in the last 4 days. But I'm almost starting to think I should probably put more focus on the at-large nation than I do just our local area. I'm still serving the local area,
Yeah.
but people come in for the retreat packages, it just makes a better overall forecastable, manageable, business model.
That's
But
a
anyway,
beautiful office, Steve. It's really pretty.
yeah. So this is Healing Arts Center, and this is where we share our space. Then we have our treatment room actually through that one of those doors there, and that middle of that screen takes us to our treatment room. We have several rooms where we do WAVI, et cetera. But then there's also Dr. Anderson, who's the DO, and 5 or 6 chiropractors and other access to great massage therapists, acupuncture, Rolfing, this type of thing. So it's kind of a mixed bag of
Wow.
approaches that we can refer back and forth to each other when necessary. Um, and then of course you're familiar with Wavi. I'm just doing pictures and talking because this is what I had time to do this week. I threw a bunch of pictures into a PowerPoint, but it's always a work in progress. So Wavi and then the TM flow, these are really our staples for objective data. And we refer to it as the cardio nerve system, but the manufacturer is really TM Flow, measuring everything from the neck down. So we're getting great score, great objective data anyway on all
Now,
the
what
main.
is the TM flow, Steve? Tell me about more about that, would you?
What does it do?
Yeah, what is, yeah, how does it work?
Yeah, so TM Flow, I'm going to show you a report too. TM Flow um, is measuring, like I say, everything from from the neck down. And it is looking at cardio and vascular. It's looking at obviously blood pressure and endothelial function, body composition, exercise capacity, cardiac autonomics. It's looking at microcirculatory response and ankle brachial index and sweat response, amongst a few other things. And it's getting that through cuffs on the arms, cuffs on the ankles, some sticky pads that leads that we put on the bottom of the feet, and a good pulse ox, all Bluetoothed into the TM Flow software. So it's real time. It's generating a great report instantly. I can put it right in front of Dr. Anderson while the patient's there. They're getting explanations immediately, as opposed to I just think of the so many times where I had to get a test or a screening and I never even heard back. You don't even know what's going on. Or if you did, it was a week or 2 weeks, and then they want to schedule out for 3 months. And um, this is just such a different experience. But I'll show you um, a, a general summary of a report. This is just part of another PowerPoint that I have done in the past. But as can you see that, Phil?
No, I'm not seeing an image on there. No, I am.
Okay. All right, good. So this would have been an initial report with the TM Flow for one of our patients who came in. He's in his later 70s. History of stroke, heart attack. About a decade or more ago, they discovered he had a hole in his heart. His whole life it was there. He never knew it, but that's what was causing his problems. And so as a result, in addition to some fairly well, I would say defined scoliosis, this guy has had a lot of challenges.
Hmm.
And so these are some of the scores that we grab when we're looking at the TM Flow, as I say over here on the left. I mean, the vascular assessment, a lifestyle assessment, autonomics. And then and this is, by the way, it's an FDA cleared device. It's insurance reimbursable for anybody who may ever ask.
Well,
Uh, and so quick, 15 minutes, easy, great report. We obviously would like to see a score higher than 47% at the bottom there. So he really came in kind of hurting with a severe endothelial function score. He was overweight. He was in an extra large Neuro 20 suit when we got started with him, but he was losing his strength. He was losing his balance. He was just declining. And his wife was like, "We need to do something for this man." So um, he was referred in to us actually from an outside source, a physical trainer in town who was working with him, said, "You need more than I can do for you." And but over that, probably he was probably with us 6 months, I would say 5 to 6 months, twice a week. Um, when I matched this up with his Wabi scores, they were as a comprehensive package, they were definitely similar, I guess you could say. They were supportive of each other. The scores were not good, and I have those in here, I believe. But then we started working with Jim, and over a couple months, we started to get some objective measurables. He was moved up to a 57%.
awesome.
His lifestyle assessment around his body weight started to really balance out. In fact, when he was finished, he was in a medium suit, not an extra large.
That's super.
Yeah. Now you can see the endothelial here. I didn't put a focus on it here, but it's still in that severe mode. But then we got him from severe. We got his score up to 63%. We much
Wow.
more normalize the endothelial, and that's going to be, a function of Dr. Anderson's dietary and supplemental changes too, but taken in conjunction with light and suit, as I usually
Yeah.
call them, we we see these kinds of results. We have a number of use cases where this is what we're producing for people, and so this, I mean, this is sort of the front page of like a 10, 12 page report that TM Flow kicks out. These are the things that need to, be assessed quickly by Dr. Anderson. And so again, it's more or less just saying to patients, hey, we want to be able to do a track and treat concept here. And if I'm talking to practitioners from the neurologic side, I might call it measurement and intervention, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's track your issues, let's treat them and track again. Let's just keep measuring until we get you to a point. Um, yeah, so this was Jim's initial WAVI screening. And again, keeping it simple in PowerPoints is not always easy, but if you have, a little bit of recollection of a WAVI report, this is just a topographic image that is reflective of data around that central parietal region of the brain. And Jim at that time, I mean, he was having a hard time completing some of the tests, trail making B, for instance, and very low amplitude, as you can see. And then we came back to it. What would that have been? November, December, January. For about 4 months in, we ran another one and pretty significant increase in amplitude. Let me see if I had. So yeah, so this is just drilling in a little bit more closely to what we were doing with him. As you can see, though, we're mostly concerned with central parietal region on this montage, but the other scores here matter as well. It's just that these are the ones that matter most. And you can see the increases in voltage going for, say, PZ, if we look at 3.3 up to almost 15,
Well,
6.5 to 15 and a half.
those are monster changes.
They are just phenomenal, and that's where I'm like, man, if we weren't getting these results, I don't know what I'd do, but but we are getting them. And I had a very, very strong sense just having worked with these tools, which again is why I said, let's get a clinic rolling. Let's see what we can do with these things. And we're getting these types of results. Now, this would be another example of a female patient with a 20-year history of left-sided paralysis as a result of a brain tumor surgery many years ago. And so this is what she looked like. Can you guess which side her tumor was on? Um, I mean, she doesn't have any amplitude on the right. Then we move to this. Now, that was a shocker for us, and that did not actually last very long, this type of, but we think that the brain was essentially going plasticity and realizing based on the signals we were feeding into her brain that it was basically like, man, I do have function here. We don't know exactly why it seems to have dropped on the left, but it only did it for a short period of time. And then there are also degrees of difference even amongst these two uh, screenings, and the color coding doesn't necessarily lend to that fact. I can explain that further, but it needs to be able to produce something that we can visually appreciate. And so in some cases, the intensity of this red may be objectively greater or lower than the intensity of this red, is all I'm trying to say. But we had this very quick turnaround. It was only a couple of months. And then we got into our third one, where, as you can see, you see how this same image is now kind of a pale yellow?
Mhm.
Well, that is equal to the previous one that I just showed you where it was red. But
Right.
visually speaking, it's now being compared to some other screenings we did. So it's there. There's an increase in amplitude there with no doubt. But in some of these other ones, she really started to pick up amplitude in other parts of her brain as well. We did that. Um, I want to say, I don't know if I have the dates on this. About a 3.5 month period of time where we were measuring kind of front, middle, and end. And in some cases, as you might recall, when that P300 amplitude is so weak, the system may have a hard time grabbing it. The system might be saying that, was that a P300 that just went by? And it might throw it out to the nth degree of the parameters, which would be 240 milliseconds and 500 milliseconds. Those are your outer walls that you would hit if you're doing any screening. And of course, we want to see 300 or thereabouts, depending on age too, as As we age, that might naturally be a little slower. But as you can see, we kind of had that issue with these first two screenings where she had a weaker signal, hence the 240 or the 500. And and then we really were able to lock on and grab on to some real power that made better sense and get a sense of what her latency or her brain speed is or was at the time. So that in of itself, just the objective difference between being able to actually grab the data versus not being able to grab the data is in itself a measurement, so to speak. And so this is a trajectory of improvement. This is a journey where the brain is improving, and then I'm going to see if I can find. I'm going to go back up here real quick and find her. Sorry for all of the. Here she is. No, that was the. I showed you those. Oh, you know what? I must. Oh, you know what? I didn't have a TM flow for that patient. That's what it was. So all we had was Wavi on this one. But if I just objectively show you some more human uh aspects of this, and give me 2 seconds and I'll switch over. Uh, Go. That might take a second to get onto your screen. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, no, I am.
Okay, so I'm going to come down here to the actual patient. So as you can see, she's in the Neuro 20 suit. You can see the contracture there in the left hand and the almost noticeable difference just in size, right? Just in the circumference of her forearm. She also had drop foot on the left side. So she's got atrophy that ranged from the neck to the shoulder, the arm, and as just certain aspects of her leg wasn't quite as bad. This would be the left hand, of course, which was always in sort of this very tight, contracted state. We got to the second session, and she was able to do this.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. And I mean, I was astounded, and her husband was sitting there, and he was just, I don't think he knew what to do or think. She then showed up to one of our open houses and told her story,
Oh,
which was great.
that's
But
great.
and then there's my other patient that I was mentioning, the gentleman with stroke and heart. This guy here had very little ability to enunciate any words. His tongue was deeply affected, or the bundle of nerves back here that controls the tongue was pretty deeply affected by the stroke. So he was, and that was kind of how he would communicate.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of be able to learn to translate and understand him a little bit better. But I said, guys, why don't we bombard the back of his head with infrared while we have the suit running? But let's have him doing some physical activity. Let's have him on the recumbent bike. Let's have him moving his arms up and back, And I want him blinking and looking sideways. I want him sticking his tongue out. So that's why he has his tongue out. I said, I just want to exercise all these things
Yeah.
while we're in treatment. And over the course of 2 weeks, his wife, his physical trainer, us, everybody could understand him better.
Oh, that's super.
He came in one morning and said, "How are you?" And I was like, "What?" I'm like, so I mean, I will admit that, I mean, I'm doing all of this under Dr. Anderson, right? But just being the inquisitive person that I am and just observing things, it just sometimes occurs to me, well, if that's not working, let's try this right
No, that's
there.
a great idea. Yeah, super.
And, I started nicknaming him. I nicknamed him, this is Jim, but I nicknamed him Oklahoma because he said the word Oklahoma and we could understand it.
It's
So I
good.
said, from now on, that's your nickname. So, and I'm jumping back and forth here, but you can see from the standpoint of sort of the Wavi capture and the TM flow capture that we can get some pretty good hard objective data, and then we can go to
Yeah.
work. And then, just as a side note, this is a bilateral drop foot patient who did very, very well while here. He flew in from Virginia. And this is just the Firefly itself, giving you a sense of kind of what it looks like, how we use it. But these two wands together, 75,000 milliwatts of infrared. This was a dementia patient who came in at 88 years old. And over the course of our 3-month package, really just completely snapped out of it. Wife, family, kids, everybody was like, man, you're back. This is amazing.
That's
And,
awesome.
and we have use cases for these patients that I'm showing you that are signed off, and we've presented them at an association conference in Florida back in April. And so anyway, that's kind of where we are. And I'm just kind of looking at the overall opportunity, not only on the business side, but just the opportunity that we can offer to the community. Um, and with Dr. Anderson, he's in today, thankfully, but he's with a patient. I wondered whether or not I might even have him join this little meeting, but in any case, I am having a follow-up with him this afternoon about exosomes
Oh, cool. Yeah.
that you're
Well, the
doing.
stem cells and the exosomes might be an adjunct to what you're doing. I love what you're doing, Steve. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's awesome. Let me ask you, how much would it cost to rent one of those things for a month?
Oh, that's right. You asked me that.
Firefly.
I'm sorry, Phil.
No, it's fine.
You're talking about the Firefly.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now so that this doesn't escape my short-term memory problem. Um, I'm texting Dr. Bales.
Yeah. And ask him about that thing. If putting together, how many of those could you put together? I mean, there's got to be a sweet spot. I ain't got a clue, but I bet he knows where you could really jack up the infrared, like in a sauna that you could get like a home unit or something that would optimize everything because you guys could make, I mean, I could see where you'd have different levels of these things, Steve, that would be, I don't know if they could be where the whoever bought it, where they could have different, you said you got the blue and the red and all the other things, but I'm just wondering if it could be I've seen other saunas that are out there like that, but I thought probably this one's probably a lot more potent.
Oh yeah, this by far really is. And that in fact I have some some documentation if you want I can send over that kind of gives you the nerdy sciencey stuff of what kind of power are we talking about, what kind of
Yeah,
frequencies are
I'd love to see that.
but I just texted Dr. Bales and asked if he has a little time this afternoon for me. And again, that's actually there you go as an example of kind of the other side of this whole thing is the relationships with the manufacturers is so good and so strong. These guys are actually just friends. I
Wow,
mean,
that's great.
I know some of their family members now. They'll fly into town. Some of them have
Wow.
stayed as a guest at my house. I mean, it's really been an interesting organic development that supports this sort of recovery and prevention, so to speak, approach. But here, this guy has you can see he's got the Neuro 20 suit on. He has some outerwear on over it, which anybody can do, of course. And but that combined with light and Nupanex, it's just a different guy.
That's awesome. Are you going to the memory care centers or whoever, the hospitals post-stroke, whatever,
You know,
neurologists
I have
around here?
tried. I really have tried on several fronts.
Yeah.
I've spent some time really trying to get into nursing and assisted living, even if it's just for wound care, because this light works so well
Oh,
to
that's right.
close
You mentioned that. Yeah.
pressure ulcers, etc. And we may get a breakthrough there. I have one that's particularly interested, but very slow in the process. And it all comes down to, well, how do we pay for it? And so well, we're staying away from the Medicare thing. So there's a disconnect on that front. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to develop a business approach that would be cost effective and worthwhile on both sides in order to run the business of it. But and I'm open to suggestions too, or anything at all that you think that we ought to be
I'm just
considering.
thinking there are going to be a certain number of people that, like this gentleman, that families have the resources and I don't know what you call it, where you're not making claims, where they don't come after you. But I anyway, if people could see this, there'd be so many people that would want
Yeah.
to take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I totally agree. Well, in any case, yeah, that's kind of, I think, the overall approach here is just getting more
that's
people to
beautiful,
understand.
man. Congrats. And you're doing a lot of athletes too, I assume, that have injured and stuff like that.
Honestly, Phil, we have not ourselves. There are others around the country, I think, that are. We just didn't have as much of an in on that front. Not to say we haven't done any, especially when it comes to Wavi. If somebody's coming to us for, post-concussion scenario, we've definitely done that. But to that point, the Neuro 20 is really profoundly helpful to the serious athletic community that is looking to either make faster recoveries or even improve their capabilities. There is a fairly famous runner, track star, who used Neuro 20 for some period of time and took a second off of his best time.
Well,
So that's interesting, and I think part of the issue there is just my own personality and my own interests and temperament is more engaged toward, um, let's say, the non-athletic community. It's not that I'm not interested. It's
yeah.
just that I tend to,
Oh,
for some
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
go in this direction more. But we could certainly do plenty with the suit, especially the suit. But in recovery mode, the light as well, without a doubt. And but just the long list of uh, conditions that the light by itself treats is so. I mean, we're talking Parkinson's here. We're talking, you know, um, obviously dementia, MS. MS has been another one.
Have you seen some really good results with MS?
We have, yeah, and so is Neuro 20 on a broader scale. And
Well,
the example that I use with MS is a patient we have out in Arizona, and this is the other thing, right? Patients who come in from a long distance obviously cannot continue to do that. And so we have the capacity to get them outfitted with these tools at home and train them and work remotely with them in whatever
wow.
capacity they need us to. And that has been happening also where um, this
What do they
lady
just buy a suit or what do you
buy the
do with it?
platforms. Yeah. Yeah, they buy the platforms. And they're not, it's not, I'm not saying it's a super cheap option. I'm saying that if they look at 10, 20, 30 years out, realizing that this is really making a big difference and they, do the math and say, well, even if I had something local and I was going twice a week for sessions to maintain my ability, they spend so much more
How
than
much
just
is the Firefly, Steve?
for a home. The home unit for Firefly is $9,500.
Okay.
And the Neuro 20 is 8,500. But, I will say to you, to Greg and others that may want to, meet with me in the future that, if we're working with somebody, I'll take a gentleman from Virginia actually came out 2 different weeks for his bilateral drop and, made the decision, I'm going to have to get this platform because it's
Yeah.
working well for me. I'm like, well, look, I'll itemize out what all of this cost really means. And piece of that is the ongoing lifetime support and service.
Yeah.
So I take that, I will still give them this support and service, but I'll take that price and either cut it in half and sometimes I'll eliminate it entirely if they've already been with us, if they're spending money with us. And, I want them to have that benefit. Um, so that can get it down to as low as 6,500 for a home unit. And And so taken together, I've had patients who bought both because this young lady really needed both. And just on that note, if I can, real quick, are you seeing this, by the way, still?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I just wanted to share. Oh, I have such a hard time with this. Let's see. Where did she go? Here she is. So this is the young lady with transverse myelitis from Mississippi. Her parents brought her up, and most of her time is in the wheelchair. And on the left, you can see she at the time was doing short distances with the walker. So we were kind of doing a full assessment here. That's actually Keith Cronin, who's one of the docs with Neuro 20. He came out
Oh, wow.
at my request to spend a day here with us. And we got her to a point where she was definitely doing far more with the walker, but by the end of the week I took the walker away. And she was coming around the corner now. At that very moment, I did happen to take her hand for a second, but I was not holding her hand while she was actually doing
Wow.
walking. But she was a little nervous, so she held her mom's hand. But the point is that right behind her is her dad with his phone following them around and says to me, I haven't seen her walk like this since she was 11 years old. She's 23
Oh,
years old.
wow.
So,
What happened to her, Steve?
sorry.
What happened to her? Was she in a car wreck or what happened to her?
She had transverse myelitis that she contracted at the age of 11. She had strep.
Oh,
It
wow.
went into a full attack mode on her cervical spine. She was paralyzed from the neck down for 10 full days until she started to bounce back a little, but her recovery was 20%.
Wow.
And so the last 12 years has been mostly wheelchair or at the very least walker, no walking around. Um, Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, not possible. But on the morning of day 3, it was back.
That's awesome.
And the timing was amazing because, people are impatient to see results. But
Sure.
I don't blame them for that at all. But on day 2 in the afternoon, she said, "Well, I'm not really noticing any changes yet." And I said, "Oh, I know. But you got to give me a little time here. This has been going on 12 years, and this is only day 2." So, but that next morning, she was able to move her foot.
Wow.
And so I was like, "See, it really does work."
That's
Um,
so cool.
yeah. So, this is kind of the opportunity. And as I say, whether it's a patient, whether it's a practitioner as a patient, whether it's a traveling patient or a local patient, or a patient that decides, hey, this is really something that's going to support me for many years to come, and I need to get into a household unit and use it 2 or 3 times a week to keep myself out of a wheelchair, which is, on a personal level, something I've been trying to do with my dad, who has had deficits and disabilities since I was a little kid. And, it always has to be difficult. Somebody always has to be like, "Well, I'm fine as I am." Like I'm trying my best to keep you
Yeah.
out of. I'm not going to turn you into an Olympic athlete, but if you're 75 years old and you're headed for a wheelchair in the next 3 years, this is a way to stay out of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
And to come back to that MS patient, in addition to the pain associated that with the MS in her hips, which was a 9 and a 10 for
Wow.
years, she's now at a 0 and has remained
Wow.
at a 0 for months. And I know that again, it sounds too good to be true. It even sounds that way to me, and I'm seeing it happen. But that was in session number 3.
Good grief.
All
That's
right, down
amazing,
from a
Steve. That's
10 to a
amazing.
0. And then that curling that takes place with the toes that MS patients get a lot. Stepping out of a shower was very difficult for her. That's all
Okay.
gone. Toes are straight
Wow.
out. She can plant her feet normally. That was after about 7 sessions.
That's amazing, man. That's really exciting.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's anyway, that's kind of I appreciate you giving me the time to do this.
Oh man, thank you for sharing this with me. This is beautiful. Is your son helping you?
Well, he was working with me for a couple of years. He's married and has kids. And when I made the switch to the clinic, we knew we were going to have to kind of break off of our
Right.
standards in order to kind of get this off the ground. Honestly, I'd love to see him come back, but he's working for a software company right now.
Good.
and he seems to like that. And they've got two little babies, and you know, they had their first Halloween over at my house last week,
That's
dressed
great.
like, little teddy bears and scarecrows and things like that. So that was fun.
Oh, that's
But
neat, man. That's neat.
yeah, so he's doing well on that front, but he's a smart guy, and I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
would love to
yeah.
have him back. He's got good intuition and he's great with people. Maybe at some point.
Well,
Um,
congrats on what you're doing, man. This is incredible. This
Thank
is
you.
beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for the
Yeah.
value you're adding to so many people. I mean, it's beautiful. Let me know what they, man. I'd love to hear what he'd run it to me for a month, and I'd love to hear about if they would put it in a what they could do for a sauna, for a home sauna, how much they could increase it to. Because
Yes,
I
yes.
think that would
I
be,
in
yeah.
fact
Because I'm
sometime.
wondering if you end up having that as an option, maybe a third option that people could buy from you, where they're getting more of the whole body exposure. I don't know, but like your girl with the transverse myelitis, your MS patients, your Parkinson's, and all that, if they could get whatever, even 75% of it, 50%, whatever is safe, but yet could get the body effect, and they could do it like daily for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it
Oh,
is.
you mean with the Neuro 20?
Yeah. Well, no, with the Firefly, if you had
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah,
Firefly
yeah.
sauna type thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the Neuro 20, what what's the beautiful thing about it? How is it helping? What's it doing?
That's a good question. The research that has been the basis to Neuro 20 shows that we're using the central nervous system, we're using the body to get signal up through the central nervous system into the brain, right? Where in the past, scientists, medical practitioners may have put more focus on a direct contact with the head,
Yeah.
try to reach the brain. We're down from the root and branch out to the twig and sending the message that way through
Oh
the
wow.
central nervous system into the brain. And that is where they are seeing profound change all around the country, not just at our clinic.
How's it
Uh,
doing that, Steve? How's it doing? I don't understand how it does it.
so it's doing it through a series of very quick pulses. And that is based on the fact that the brain. So, for instance, if I turn on a working signal, just a straight working signal, by working, I mean it's causing a real contraction and some connection with the brain as opposed to like a tense. Um, what the brain is receiving is only the first 2/10 of a second of that signal.
Yeah.
I could run it 10 minutes, I could run it 10 hours. Brain only got the first 2/10 of a second of that signal. And so what they did is they programmed it to then say, all right, well, if that's the case, then let's deliver 2/10 of a second worth of signal 4 times a second.
Wow. Okay.
So now when you have that patient with no dorsiflexion or no plantar flexion, right, for 10 years, we're now moving the leg, causing movement to take place in sort of more of a therapy environment. And while that's happening, the brain is getting a signal that, oh,
Right.
hey, you know what? That left foot is there after all. Wow, it's
Okay.
been 10 years since we've seen each other. What's going on? And this is kind of the way I discuss things with the
Yeah.
patients.
No, that's beautiful.
But and so total contracture of a hand, transverse myelitis, causing a paralysis of the feet and legs. Our stroke in our patient earlier who made such a great recovery. This is really fantastic in the area of mini strokes. So many folks have mini strokes,
Yeah.
and by our own observation, they will really believe after 6 months to a year that they're over it, that it's gone. I don't have any symptoms anymore. Then I put them into the suit, and all the symptoms rise to the top.
Okay. I've got a guy. Just thought about a guy. I'm gonna have a guy call you. Is that okay? Can I give you your cell
Oh
number?
yeah,